Okay, welcome to this latest interactive webinar hosted in partnership with Sheffield Hallam University. So today we're going to explore the topic of professional development, and specifically look at postgraduate leader apprenticeship. We're going to look at what it means today for people looking to improve their skill set and position in the workplace, what opportunities are on offer, and we're going to also going to examine the barriers to professional development, for instance, in terms of funding, from the business angle, the staffing requirements and what support's available, and also what the benefits are for the individuals and the organisations involved. So really we want to explore what value it offers and how, if at all, the current opportunities can be expanded and improved. So with that in mind, we've got a range really from both sides of the country. So live with us is Sheffield, Hallam and Morwood University's Head of Employer Solutions. We also have Mark Rayner, who's the university's Head of Business Development for Apprenticeships. Also with me is Lucy Hind, who's the Facilities Director at the contract research company Covance. Katrina Cliff, who's the Managing Director and owner of marketing agency KC Communications. And lastly, we've got Ilya Bykov, who works as a global IT cost and contracts manager for an international banking organization, and he's currently an MBA student. So with that said, we'll just jump straight in, then starting with you, Sam and Mark from Sheffield Hallam. And as I've said, everybody feel free to chime in at any point if there's something you want to add to the discussion, if anything you feel you can bring of value to the debate. And likewise, viewers, we would encourage you to post questions, which we'll go through in the Q&A. So Mark, I'll put the first question to you then. In driving universities, degree apprenticeship offering, you've engaged with employers on a regional and national level. So from your experiences, would you say some sectors are ahead of others when it comes to offering career development opportunities for people employed in that sector?
I think in terms of utilising apprenticeships for career development, then the answer is yes. But I think it's more because of kind of natural drivers as opposed to actual engagement. So I think if you look at traditional apprenticeship sectors such as construction, engineering and manufacturing, those sectors have got involved quite earlier on in the Trailblazer process, which are employer groups that create the apprenticeship standards, new apprenticeship standards in England. So the traditional industries who utilise apprenticeships and have done for a number of years have obviously got involved early on, naturally by default. I think secondly is where we've seen particular growth in new sectors. So for example, the digital industries, there has been and there continues to be and there's projected to be a huge amount of growth in digital industries, and we're seeing their demands for particularly level 6 and level 7 around things like cybersecurity. So there's a big demand there, and that seems to be a relatively new sector, but it's of high growth. I think following on from that, you've then got sectors where you've got a vocational bias anyway. So for example, in health, it's very vocationally, the training in that sector has always been very traditionally delivered in the workplace. So health is another sector that's been following on quite quickly. And then I think you've got what I would class as economic driven skills development. So when we're looking at the industrial strategy, when we're looking at things like the productivity challenges that the UK faces, there are skills and needs around that. So a great example, we had Dame Fiona Kendrick from Nestle. She's also the Deputy Chair of the Institute for Apprenticeships here at home yesterday. She was basically outlining that currently we're on average 10% behind in terms of productivity on the G7, and about 20% behind Germany. Football results being an aside at the moment. And it was clear from that actually our issue tends to be management and leadership. So again, we've seen very much a drive towards level 6 and level 7 degree apprenticeships in the management and leadership space as well. And that's really to kind of start plugging the productivity gap as well. I think probably slowly catching up is probably and we're seeing this because of the number of new apprenticeship standards coming on at degree level, particularly around things like policing, teaching, social work. The public sector are now kind of getting in the act.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I see. So, Simon, currently doing some professional leadership training. What are the things that you need to focus on to capture the attention of both the employer and the employee in that?
Training, whether it's an apprenticeship or otherwise, to do some kind of training needs analysis with them, work out what's right for them as a company, and work out whether the individuals that they are recruiting or upskilling, if within the workforce, whether the training program is right for them as well. So in terms of capturing their attention, it's actually understanding their needs and making sure that we can be responsive to that. But you're right, the Sheffield Hallam University is working in partnership with the University of Sheffield to look at the leadership and training needs, particularly in Sheffield City region. We've identified that although graduates from the universities have a strong tendency to stay in the city and the city region, there is a pattern for perhaps those moving towards leadership positions to leak from the city region and maybe move to other big centres and seek those leadership positions elsewhere, which is obviously not great for Sheffield City region. So we're doing a great deal of research into whether that is a cause and effect issue or whether there's anything else behind it. And in doing so, we're also engaging employers with the possibility of creating a new, very engaging and research-driven postgraduate leadership training offer. Whether or not that aligns with the apprenticeship standards, it remains to be seen. That's not the driver. The driver is to look at the needs of the Sheffield City region and how we can improve the leadership training there. And whilst offering them the content and skills that they would expect from that kind of course, we're also going to be seeking to create a better knowledge of the landscape, the economic landscape, leadership networks, and bring those communities of leadership practitioners and students together so that we're actually creating a better foundation for them going forward and giving them every incentive to stay and become the future leaders of Sheffield City region. I think that is capturing the attention. We've got great buy-in so far.
Yeah. I mean, do you think just going off what you made, a matter of making like the Yorkshire region more competitive to encourage people to stay, or sorry, is it more about keeping Sheffield more competitive compared to the rest of Yorkshire, or is it more just about Sheffield on a national scale, sort of, and making it a more competitive city nationally?
This particular project is driven by the boundaries of the Sheffield Local Enterprise Partnership and the Combined Authority, and so that would include Barnsley, Rotherham, Doncaster, parts of the East Midlands too. So when we say Sheffield City region, it's quite an inclusive catchment as far as South Yorkshire and a few extra areas goes. We are conducting the research against national and competitive benchmarks so that we understand the bigger picture. That particular piece of work, though, is focused around the needs of Sheffield City region. Our apprenticeship offer, moving slightly away from that theme, is both local, regional and national to reflect the university's strategy to lead locally and engage globally.
Yeah. So Mark, you're actively engaged with businesses and looking at how higher and degree apprenticeships can support business needs. Can you give us a bit of an overview of those business needs and how they're met through the university's offering?
Yeah, I think that it's understanding the context at the moment. So in terms of the new apprenticeship standards and the higher end degree apprenticeships that have been developed as a result, there's still a relatively small number of those in terms of the occupations available. We know there's more coming through the system, but it's really first and foremost understanding what the business needs are, and then looking at what current and future higher end degree apprenticeships can then be utilised to fit in with those particular business needs. I think it's a massive opportunity. Obviously, if you're a levy payer, the levy is going out, the only way you can get it in back, the money back, is through an apprenticeship scheme. For smaller companies, non-levy, then clearly it's a massive opportunity, up to 90%, in some cases 100% funding. And again, I think the other thing is there's no age limit at all in terms of, can you hear me, by the way? Yeah, fine. It's just gone a bit frozen this end. So because there's no age limit, I think it's also looking at the whole of your workforce development needs, right through from recruitment through to workforce development, etc., etc. And we're seeing organisations doing that, using the current situation and apprenticeship reforms to actually take a step back, look at their whole entire workforce development needs, and where apprenticeships can support those particular needs. I think some of the things we're seeing as well is talent development, so looking at succession planning. There are a lot of industries where there's an aging workforce. We know at the moment the demographics, we're down on 16 to 18-year-olds coming through the system for the next 2 or 3 years. And that's kind of creating not a perfect storm, but a potential storm. So organisations are having to look at their succession planning as well, and their kind of talent management. I think the other advantage with the higher end degree apprenticeships is because of the work-based learning element, because you're coming to university, you're getting your academic input and then applying that pretty much straight away in the workplace. It's a quick return for organisations in terms of higher end degree apprentices. So whether they're in the organisation and learning new skills, or they're new recruits, it's the work-based application of the academic input that actually creates value to the organisation fairly quickly. So people are seeing a quick return. And I think the other thing is that we're seeing is actually organisations are wanting, because of taking a step back and looking at their whole workforce development needs, they're looking at the education system and the provider network to kind of act as a partner. So whether it's, we want anything from a level 2 up to a level 7, how can you help us, is the challenge back to the sector and for us to coordinate our response. So a good example is recent work with FE college partners by the universities in Sheffield City region, essentially looking at how we can make sure we articulate clearly pathways. So it could be somebody coming in at a level 2, but then they've got career progression within that organisation, and then what apprenticeships they need to go on, what journey they need to go on to progress within the organisation. Or they may be, say, been in an organisation for several years, they came in at a level 3, and now they're looking to transfer into a 4, 5, 6, and maybe even 7. So they're the kind of things, nuances that we're seeing because of the introduction of the apprenticeship levy.
Yeah. All then, Sam, can you tell us how the postgraduate leadership apprenticeship work in practice? So from business perspective and from employee, exactly.
Yes, I'll try and do that. We've been running executive MBAs and MAs for a long time. Our Sheffield Business School has got a well-established leadership offer, but continually seeking to innovate. And over the last year, we've been bringing in a range of level 7 or postgraduate degree apprenticeships. So usually building on a degree qualification in some subject area, but then offering a more work-focused training package through the apprenticeship program. And those will contain core management and leadership subjects. So we'll be thinking about change.
We just lost. Oh yes, so I think we've just lost Sam and Mark. So just while they're getting back online, I suppose we could move then to Lucy, if that's okay. So you're you've experienced professional development from the individual side. So you're currently undertaking a DBA, a Doctor of Business Administration at Sheffield Hallam, and you're also working as facilities director at the drug research company Covance. So you've got the first-hand experience of juggling both of those. What sort of difficulties, if you can just tell our viewers, what difficulties have you faced in terms of pursuing learning while actually working a job?
I think it's really, really interesting when we talk about difficulties, and I think the first thing is any form of learning is challenging, no matter what age, no matter what level, within any situation. Although clearly I think studying and keeping a job requires quite a considerable amount of sacrifice. And I think when undertaking something like an MBA, a degree, a PhD, a DBA, you know, these are the sorts of things that we all have to be thinking about. Challenges, I would say, that I personally have found around that time management perspective. So obviously balancing being a senior leader within a very large global organisation and also spending enough time working and actually looking after what I'm trying to do from a DBA perspective is probably the biggest challenge. And I think for anybody sort of certainly at a slightly older age when being educated, you know, we've got that work-life balance as well. So when you're looking at work, you're looking at university and studying, and you're looking at home life balance, I would say that's critical. And for me specifically, the one thing that I would say to people, so some of my key tips, and some of the things I've learned when I've done my MBA with Sheffield and obviously now my DBA, is things like ensuring that you're prioritising daily tasks. So that's at work and study. Managing time is really important. Good planning. And then I think there's that realisation that time becomes really important, so that quality time, and it's trying to balance everything.
What's the actual figure, if you do have one, of like, you know, in terms of the amount of time as a percentage of your overall work day or work week, say, what's the percentage of time that it takes away from that? Is it about a fifth? Is it about 20%, or what's the?
I would say between 20 and 30%, depending on the level of education. So I think anybody that is looking to embark on sort of education when they're also working needs to consider that, and certainly have support from their organisation to actually help them with that, because I think it can very much become very overwhelming. Yeah. And I remember having a conversation with one of my team who's actually doing a degree at Sheffield, Hallam, and he said to me, he said, "Lucy, how much time am I going to need to spend doing the work that's required of me from a study perspective?" And I said, "It depends how well you want to study." Yeah. I said, "But whatever we can do, we will support you." But I said to him, "You're looking at 20% of time." So when you're putting that into the factor of home life as well, I would say that time and that balance of doing the nice things and taking a break, as well as work, as well as study, really has to be thought about really, really carefully.
Yeah, it's a matter of time management, isn't it? So what was it that made you take the step to actually commit to the DBA? So can you tell us a little bit about your background and what led up to it? You know, what made you want to do
it? So my background is engineering. So I've got a degree in mechanical engineering. I've done a lot of building services, and obviously through the years that I've been in industry, I've sort of been moved into management sectors and obviously into facilities management. So obviously now working for the organisation I work for, so very much on a global basis, looking after multiple sites and multiple teams of people. And I always remember the day that I started at the organisation that I'm in, I was told by somebody that unless you have the credibility to work within the science sector, you will never be taken seriously. And I said, that can't be true. It can't be true. But of course, when you're working in a very regulated and regimented science industry, of course, you are working with people who have PhDs, MBAs. And at the time I was doing my MBA with Sheffield, and I decided to take it that next step further because I was enjoying studying remarkably, because when I left school, I hated it. And of course, I took on studying much later in life. And now obviously I'm really relishing it. So I took a break in between the MBA and doing my DBA, and then decided actually, no, I'm going to move on and actually do my DBA and really look at how that can help both the business understand what the academic features are of industry out there that can help them, but also, you know, for myself and for my person, you know, personally, sort of that continued development.
I see, yeah. So just last question for you then, Lucy. thinking about how professional development as a landscape, how it's changed over the years. So through your career, since since leaving university, would you say that the opportunities available to you have changed in any way? Like what's been presented to you, I should say. You know, have you had more opportunities in recent times to sort of pursue professional development? Or
I think there's been a massive switch within industry when you look at that landscape of professional development, whether it be through CPDs or whether it be through sort of formal education or just through things like networking and developing, you know, our own sort of links within industry. I would say from an educational perspective, I think the last 6 years there's been a massive shift, and certainly the last 2 years. I mean, I can't tell you how exciting it is around sort of, you know, the professional apprenticeships that are out now. So where businesses are not necessarily being forced, but encouraged to, you know, look at this apprenticeship scheme. And the fact that it's allowing people, if they want to actually look at different things to do in later life, as well as, you know, more opportunities for sort of school leavers and people who are coming out of university. I think it's brilliant. I can't sort of say enough about it. And obviously, one of the key things for my team is that continual development. So it's just opening up a whole wealth of, you know, new things that can be looked at. And I think personally, it's that breadth that's available. So, you know, you've got the university stance, you've got the stance from industry, so from people like the British Institute of Facilities Management, CIBSE, so Chartered Institute of Building Services Engineers, RICS, all sorts of people who are really engaging now on this development, moving people forward, which I think is allowing people to progress and actually develop, so that when you're in business, it's not just the thing that you're doing on a day-to-day basis that you're considering. You're actually looking at the wider aspects of business as a whole and operation, so you can put a lot more into your day-to-day work than you used to be able to. It's incredible what's going on at the moment. It's good, very good.
That's brilliant. So thanks, Lucy. So Sam and Mark, will just return to you, back to you. Obviously, a technical difficulty then. Can you hear me okay, Sam and Mark? No. So we'll return to you guys in a bit. I think your microphone's muted. Is that? Okay. Well, for now, we'll just move on to Katrina. So Katrina Cliff, obviously, you're the managing director and founder of KC Communications, a Yorkshire-based marketing and PR and social media agency. So, just like to ask you, in your view, what are the benefits for obviously as the owner? What are the benefits for the business that actively promotes continued professional development in the workplace? Would you say, does it lead to a genuine difference in the workplace and the impact it has on business productivity, culture, that sort of thing, Katrina?
I think it has a positive impact all round, really. So one, you're showing that you're willing to invest in your employees and their professional development, whether that's, you know, for them within the company moving forward, or if it's them, you know, looking beyond further on into their career. But by developing them in-house, you know, we're going to see huge benefits from that the time that we do have them with us. And so that could be everything from, you know, improving the overall productivity, which, you know, makes our sort of profit margins increase, to, you know, that's financial impact as well that can be had on staff. So the more productive we are, you know, we're getting through things faster. We can take on other projects, which means I can financially reward staff better as well. But I think it does have that kind of improvement on sort of the overall culture, because people's knowledge is developing, it's enhancing. You know, they feel more confident, they feel more positive. The relationships with our clients improve further because we're able to come up with more ideas, and we're able to develop their campaigns more and get better results. And it just has kind of better results all round. But also, you know, having people within the workforce that are developing in different areas means that we're able to kind of go down the route of peer mentoring. So there's that, you know, people working together to develop each other as well. So we all have very different strengths in KC Communications. and we're really trying to enforce that kind of peer mentoring. So, you know, when someone is going out doing some form of professional sort of learning, CPD, how they feed that back to the rest of the workforce, that helps develop other people as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, from a culture point of view, that does really, really have a positive impact.
I see, yeah, so like a big morale boost and stuff. So I suppose you'd say it's about creating more value with the resource you've got, as opposed to just simply increasing the resource that's there.
And we've done that in the past, and you know, I started the business 4 years ago, and it's definitely been a massive learning curve for me. I've myself have been one that's always put myself actively through CPD. I've done. I started my career as an apprentice, you know, a long time ago now, and I've put myself through doing some formal learning with the Open University. I've done 2 Chartered Institute of Marketing diplomas. I probably would do something else, you know, if time allowed at the moment. So it's something that I do try and kind of instill within my workforce. But you know, it really does have a positive impact. You know, we've tried where we've been really busy in the past. We got the team up to 7 members of staff, but actually from a financials point of view, that wasn't really working. Everyone sort of seemed to be really busy, but we weren't really getting the return on investment from that.
Yeah.
So actually looking at the staff that we've got, how can we develop them further? How can we, enhance their career progression within the business and get to that point where from that improvement in productivity and also through the learning that we're doing, it's opening up more quality projects for us to work on as well, which means we're starting to have a client base which is quality over quantity, so people aren't as frazzled trying to manage 11 clients. They're only going to be having to look after 5. But again, coming back to that, how can we then better reward staff, whether that's through flexible working, looking at how we structure our days, and even down to sort of financial rewards as well.
Yeah, brilliant. So obviously talking specifically about KC Communications, then what professional development opportunities do you try to offer, would you say? So you talk a bit more about the collaborative side of it, what you said with the peer-to-peer stuff.
So we've tried and tested a few things out over the years. We've had, as I said, I was an apprentice myself, so it's something that I'm always keen to have within the business. So we do have someone doing a formal digital marketing apprenticeship at the moment, who she is a junior entrant. But then we've also, with the overall team, we've done various other elements of training. We've not gone down sort of the formal route with more senior staff, but it's something we'd like to explore. But we've done, we've gone through a period of account management training, which, for a relatively new and small business, that's a significant investment, but it's always kind of an end goal in mind. But currently, at the moment, what we're doing is we're thinking about going into our 5th financial year, what that looks like for the business, what it looks like for the people within it. And what I've done is I'm investing in a coach to come into the business, do some one-to-one development with each of my staff to help sort of challenge them about where they want their career to go, how they maybe see themselves being more involved in areas of business. And rather than it being me as the employer challenging my staff to do that, having sort of a third party who there's no kind of concern about sharing something that you might be not willing to share with your employer. It's really challenging them to think about what is it that they actually want out of life, what is it that they want out of the role that they're in and sort of their future development. But also, people don't stay in roles forever. They used to do many years ago, but businesses see a higher turnover of staff now, and I anticipate that I will lose some of them. But if they're wanting to go on to bigger and better things, how can we actually develop them in this business to help them get to that? But it helps our business grow and develop and attract quality staff moving forward and attract the sort of clients that we want to work with.
going back to that point, what you just made then about the staff retention thing, you know, people back in the day obviously stayed. It was a lot more common for people to stay in one job for decades sometimes compared to nowadays when people tend to move from position to position as opportunity presents itself. Do you think this sort of like a more informed like workforce in terms of professional development, do you think it will lead? We'll see a little bit of a return, perhaps, to you know, people staying in their jobs for longer and stuff? Do you think it will boost staff retention?
I definitely think it will, and I've been in roles where I've been there for a lengthy amount of time. I've been in other roles where I haven't, just because it's not been the right fit. And I think it's down to a multitude of factors. So it's about the individual themselves being honest with themselves about what they want out of their career, and communicating with their employers about what, you know, how an employer can actually help them as well. And it's just about open and honest discussion. And I think where you can have that, you can definitely create sort of longevity with the stuff you want to keep within your business. So, like I said, we've got a theme for our next financial year, which is retention and development, and that applies to our staff, but then also to the clients that we're working with and we want to keep working with. But it's very much a staff retention and development focus for us this year. So we will be investing heavily in that. And once we've got those one-to-ones out of the way, looking at, right, what professional development opportunities are available to staff. So what is it that they're wanting to achieve? It might be, you know, going down sort of higher degree apprenticeship level. It might be some other form of learning and development, and then putting that in place.
So to me, it sounds like you're not just sort of, as the business owner, you're not just sort of looking at it and saying, okay, well, saying to your staff, rather, these are the opportunities available. It sounds to me like you're taking like a bit of a democratic approach to it, where you're asking them what they think they need for their careers.
Because I think, you know, as kind of Lucy touched upon earlier, you know, it takes a lot of commitment for you to go down the route of doing additional professional learning whilst you're in employment, and particularly, you know, if you have got other commitments as well. You know, I've done my CIM diplomas whilst having 2 small children, but for me it's about what are my priorities in life, what do I want to achieve, and what do I want to show my girls, you know, what I'm capable of and what they could be capable of as well. So again, coming back to these one-to-ones that my staff are having, it's about kind of getting them to think about what they want, and ultimately what are they going to have to do to help them get that. And then that's where I'll be, you know, saying, right, well, let's look at this, let's see how I can invest in it, let's see how I can support you with time. But also, you know, people definitely, if you want that development, they have got to commit to giving up evenings and weekends and that as well. But I, you know, obviously will be as flexible as possible, but there's just times where there's projects happening that you just can't allow someone out for a full day to be working on something. But yeah, it's very much about them thinking about their development, and then from that, how can I help them to make that happen? But at the same time, what's the business case as well, and how's that going to impact on the business and on the clients that we work with?
It's finding a balance, I suppose, between the two, isn't it? Between the needs of the business and the ambitions of the employee. So we'll just, before moving on to Ilya, we'll just return to Sam and Mark. Sam and Mark, I think your microphone's muted. If you could, I think if you just click, you can unmute it. Should just be a little arrow to click. Still muted for me. Oh yeah, could be an issue, or a technical issue with the microphone on that end. Hopefully it resolves itself before the end. But I mean, for now we'll move on to you, Ilya. You okay? I think.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, Ilya. Okay, yeah. So as we've already said, you're global IT cost and contracts manager at a global banking organisation. So am I right in saying you're currently studying at Bullion executive MBA students at the moment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I've just finished it as well. So I think as of yesterday, I'm officially moving to the graduate status now. So I've just finished the dissertation.
Right.
So,
So I was going to ask as the first question. So what would be your advice for somebody who was looking to explore that similar MBA route to you? What advice would you have for somebody who was thinking about pursuing that route?
okay, I think to echo the words of Lucy earlier, it is quite a big commitment for somebody who has busy career and sort of family life, and trying to find that work-life balance is not difficult, but it just takes some planning. And again, just to echo what Lucy said, it is I viewed it as a 3-year long project where I knew that there's going to be a lot of time required, and said 20-30% required to dedicate to studying if you want to do it really well. And for me, I found it useful to spend pretty much every Sunday studying and having an arrangements within the family that allowed me to sort of to go away and to study in the library and actually do some quality work rather than trying to have pockets of an hour, half an hour time towards it, which I knew wouldn't be useful. So it is doable, definitely. It's doable for somebody who comes from I've got English as a second language. I've got academic studies that I've done before were in Russia, so it's a big change in terms of the overall journey of academic journey that I've had to step towards. But yeah, it's I think the biggest advice would be just to plan. To someone that's to make sure that you know the commitment that is required, and it's not going to be all 3 years that 20% of your time is going to be taken by it. There's going to be segments of time that you need to dedicate to it, so just plan well. And the second advice would be just to embrace this, because it's an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to get involved with a lot of very thought-provoking conversations with your with other people from the MBA or from your degree, and it does change you in a way. It does allow you to learn a lot about your working style, about how you can cope with pressure, and how you can cope with multitasking, very sort of busy projects. Yes. But the main advice for me would be to do it, because I personally saw a big difference that it's made to my career, to my financial position, and to the stability of my family.
I see. So you say you just finished it. That's what's next for you then, Ilya? What's the next goal?
I think the World Cup. I've got a trip to World Cup next week, so I think that's as much I'm planning at the moment. But I did mention at some point to my wife that I wouldn't mind. I quite enjoyed doing the degree, and I wouldn't mind doing a DBA at some point, which was I think my wife was not very pleased about. So I think we'll need to give some time, but definitely some more professional development would be on the book for me. Just probably 2-3 months time when I can start planning it. So. Yeah, but I wouldn't, and I'm involved with quite a lot of forums with the students within the university. So there's been an opportunity then to have an ongoing engagement with the university, if you wanted to, obviously, to try and share the experience and try to continue having those conversations, because I found it really interesting, and say it's really interesting to work with other businesses, with other students who are experiencing probably the same daily issues and challenges in all sorts of areas of business.
Yeah, you've talked just now about obviously the benefits to you financially and in terms of your skill set and stuff of this sort of professional development. So, but do you see what sort of impact do you see having on the business side? Like, so for the employer, what's the benefit for them, would you say?
So for the employer in particular, I was able to deliver and exceed my targets of my specific role, which are related to the cost savings that we need to deliver to the bank, to renegotiation of contracts, trying to realign a lot of the strategic relationships that we have with our vendors. So the impact has been very evident, and in terms of the maybe the visible impact, shall we say, that you can see that the achievement on targets I had this year, over 1.5 million in terms of cost saving and cost avoidances for the bank, which was quite greatly appreciated from the senior management team, and they could see the impact. So as you look through the journey of 3 years, when I just started the MBA, and the convincing I had to sort of make towards a partial sponsorship of this MBA was quite difficult, shall I say, at some point, because it was, like I say, it's with any investment, it's really hard to see the return of that investment for the organisation. But towards the third year, that was a much easier conversation. I didn't really need to do much talking. That was a pretty much straightforward sponsorship of the majority of the third year fees. So I could see definitely the impact to the business, and I could see the return to the business, the tangible return to the business.
I see. Oh, thanks, Ilya. So Sam and Mark, now that we've got you back, yeah, so sorry about that. I think there was some sort of technical issue. Can you hear me okay? Yeah.
Can you hear us okay? Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, I've got you fine. That's good.
We've managed to scramble another laptop, so fingers crossed.
Oh, yeah, hopefully this one will stay on. So, Sam, just to return to the question that because you were telling us how a postgraduate executive leadership apprenticeship works in practice from an employee and employee perspective. Could
I've begun to outline a response. So apologies if there's some repetition. It's unclear to us how far you were able to receive the first attempt at this. So we devised apprenticeship programs that can be very bespoke to the employer. That can be done through the incorporation of specific work-based learning modules that take a project approach, which enables the employer and the apprentice to select something that they're doing in the workplace, quite a chunky project, hopefully, and therefore there's an immediate impact for the business, and that project is hopefully done better because they're applying theory in an immediate and situated way. So that project focus and a work-based learning emphasis is one way in which these programs work in practice. We're also able to bring in, well, there's the core teaching of a leadership program, such as change management, strategic leadership, finance for business, those sorts of things, and entrepreneurship. But we then try to bespoke our programs as well by sector. So we've got MBAs and MAs that focus on retail, that focus on facilities management and hospitality, for example, and we're working hard to bring forward a digital level 7 leadership offer as well. And so those are some of the ways that they work in practice. One of the things that's come up before, and Katrina was talking about this to some extent earlier, is this notion of 20% off the job learning. And it is for providers like Sheffield Hallam to help businesses understand that this does not equate to day release. It can do if the business wants that, and that is often helpful for a local market, a local employer base, if you want. But the 20% is something you can pick up kind of along the way, and we can help understand what that means. So if you are an executive or a leader within an organization and worried about the impact on your business performance, I think there's two things to take into account. One is that whilst you're doing specific projects, you are learning and reflecting in action. And there's pedagogic theory or andragogic theory to support this idea that you learn as you do. A professional learns as they do, and because that's then been caught in academic submissions and reflective journals and e-portfolios, that kind of thing, we're quite confident that 20% off the job learning doesn't have to be out of the workplace. And once you marry that up with actually attending some classes, online webinars, that kind of thing, it doesn't have to hurt so much. And what I'd also say is, I suppose reflecting on past experience where I undertook a leadership program, if I improve leadership practice by 15%, if it's at all measurable, the impact on the business of that improved leadership is going to far outweigh that smaller amount of time that you spend away from the business. So I would encourage employers and the apprentices to look at this holistically. So that down the line there might be quite a few employees saying my boss is an apprentice, and we look forward to that and we welcome that. And in fact, we are offering those leadership apprenticeship courses to our own staff. We believe in it.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, as you say, they're talking about the impact on the business and the workforce and stuff. I mean, as Ilya said and Lucy as well, it's from their perspective, the what they're able to give back to the businesses is tangible and in many cases measurable. And as Katrina said as well, it's while their own experience with professional development and stuff has enabled her to actually set up the business and improve staff retention and broaden the skill set, I suppose, as well. So that's brilliant. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Sam or Mark, on what our other speakers have said so far?
I think it's just it's good to see both from an employer's perspective and an individual's perspective the impact that these things can have. So I think that's been a really important point to make. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I think because we're coming towards the end of the webinar, we'll look to do our a Q&A. So we'll just see if there are any questions through from the viewers that we've had over the course of this discussion. I've got some now. Cheers. Okay, so we've got a question from Glenn Warrington. So Glenn's asked, where and what are the best options for someone who's 65 plus, still working in executive positions, to study for an MBA or a DBA? So what and where, Glenn's asking, what are the best options for somebody of that age, of the 65 plus demographic?
Okay, I think that might be a question for us.
Yeah.
Obviously, we welcome apprentices. There are no limitations on age for apprenticeships.
Yeah.
It's about whether or not you are suitable for the programme, whether or not you show the capability of learning, and in some cases there may be some qualifications required, which we can look at with any candidate and help them on board. Our Vice Chancellor, Sir Professor Chris Husbands, was talking yesterday at our national conference and highlighting that we've got several learners over the age of 50, some in late 50s on our course now. And I think from September we'll be welcoming a mother and a daughter onto the same programme, which is kind of interesting. So really just talk to your preferred provider, whether that's Sheffield, Hallam or elsewhere. There should not be any issue with that. As long as you're in a professional occupational role where you can gain the experiences needed to support the academic journey and how those are integrated, then there really shouldn't be any concern about that. We welcome a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you said today, like there is a bit of a broad range of ages of people who are studying on these programs. So oh yeah, we've got a question there from Nick. With the day-to-day running of a business, are there any concerning issues surrounding the amount of time staff take to study for an MBA? So we've covered this briefly, but I'll put this one to you, Katrina. Just what what would you say about that? In terms of the I mean, I don't know if any of your staff obviously have done an MBA yet, but would you say what would you say to somebody, say a fellow business owner who was concerned about the time it would take away?
I think it's understanding what you're going to get from that return on investment. So, it does mean that staff are going to need to take the time out during the working day to help them, proceed through that course. Then understanding kind of what's in it for the employer as well is really crucial. But I think it's how you work together all round. So, if I've got an employer who we have got time that permits for them to take time out during the working day to do that, that's absolutely fine. Similarly, it needs to be a partnership. So the employer needs to show willing that they're also, willing to give up their free time themselves, and it's that side of things. I think if you can show kind of willing all round, then employers will be more than happy to support their staff with that.
I mean, and even if it was a concern, like it's as Mark and Sam said a moment ago, it's any sort of impact that there is, wouldn't call it a negative impact, but any impact that there is, the business is more, going to more than recuperate it back from the.
Ultimately, comes down to points that we made before around, making sure that you're effective with your time planning. So when you are actually working, make sure that you're being productive and you're delivering in those areas. But then if you are then requesting time out to do any sort of assessments that you need to do or exams, anything like that you're being productive with that time too. So, if you say, right, I want half a day or a day out to be able to crack on with this week, that you actually do plan for that and you crack on with it when you do it. I've been through it myself. I finished off my latest diploma whilst running a business, so doing the day job, doing all the stuff that comes with actually running a business too, studying, writing up assignments, and having a family to look after as well. And, you know, there's been times where I've got on my laptop and I've been distracted by, you know, moving over to Facebook and all that kind of stuff, and I've not been using my time effectively, and then that makes me feel stressed. And so it's really important that, you know, time planning all round and communicating with your employer is really important.
Brilliant. So I'll put this next question back to Sam and Mark. So Susan Williams has asked, in terms of using this qualification to further your career outside of your current employer, how highly regarded are these qualifications with employers when applying for a new role? So, you know, how prestigious is it? And, you know, in terms of getting you noticed on in the job markets, should we say?
Yeah, I think what's interesting for apprenticeships is that bringing in degree apprenticeships or postgraduate level apprenticeships is helping to pull up the overall brand and awareness of apprenticeships, and that's starting to be seen in schools. It's starting to be understood by employers. So I think that's really positive and important for different providers to work together to support the journey of an apprentice, right through from a carpenter who might be joining two pieces of wood together to a senior leader that might be trying to join two companies together. And so I think they are valued. The senior leadership apprenticeships contain an executive master's qualification, so they're entirely portable globally, and I think there's quite a simple answer to that, really, that you're gaining a postgraduate degree qualification within that apprenticeship journey.
Yeah.
As well, just from an employer's point of view. So when I see applications for roles within my business from people that have gone down some form of additional learning throughout the career, they actually really stand out to me, because it demonstrates that that person's ambitious, it demonstrates that they've got good time management and planning skills, and really they're the sort of people that I want in my business. So, you know, regardless of formal accredited qualifications, less formal, I think it really demonstrates more about that person as well. So I think from a recruitment point of view, it stands people in good stead. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it shows like a level of it's proactive, isn't it? Because they're taking their own initiative themselves to improve their skills and their sort of attractiveness as a applicant, aren't they? So
I think it is an attractive degree. If you look at having any degree from Hallam versus the internal training that you have, is definitely recognised by any employer versus the internal training that you might have done on a strategy that you don't know how long it takes. It might be just an online 1-hour training versus the postgraduate degree versus that from Hallam or from other organisation. It definitely does stand out on your CV, and it does allow you to have a different type of conversation during the interviews, which I've certainly noticed in the last 2 years since I've been doing the MBA.
Yeah,
so it definitely makes a difference to your CV, and gives you, MBA in particular, gives you that breadth of knowledge about other industries. You're not just linked to, let's say, for myself, the banking. You can then have very informed conversation about marketing, finance, about other areas of business that are valued.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said earlier, you know, if you did end up going on to do the DBA, you know, do you see that opening up, you know, fresh opportunities for you in your current organisation? Like, will that open up positions to you and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it will be definitely encouraged by the employer. And the commitment, to be fair, it's more the commitment that I had to make to it was mostly on my personal side rather than taking days off. I think mostly the most amount of days I had to take off during the year was about 5 days, which is in line with the standard HR practice. So the rest of it, I think I was prepared to put that time, those 20% of my personal time, rather than taking it all entirely.
Yeah, absolutely. Lucy, just to return to you, obviously you've done the DBA and that was with Sheffield Hallam as well. What's next for you, Lucy? Would you say, you know, after, in terms of professional developments, you know, you've done the doctorate, so, you know, what's next for you?
Well, I'm just finishing off the doctorate now, so I'm just doing sort of the final write-ups. When I finish that, I mean, if I'm absolutely honest, I would like to look at how I can take what I've learned back to others. So for me, sort of going not into academia, but sort of looking at how I can help other students come through sort of that process is key for me. And I think to what Ilya was saying, and sort of Katrina, around all the pieces when you're thinking about from sort of the business perspective, it's remembering that if you are the person that's learning, you are in essence an expert in what you are learning at that time. So it's making sure that people are taking back what they're learning from a university, whichever university they choose, and they're actually using that in their professional life, and that they're not just sitting there, because it does give you this whole breadth of understanding. And I think it's also very important to understand and choose the right university and the right style of learning. So for me, you know, I mean, I want to continue sort of my own professional development, but also look at how, you know, I can inspire others to actually take that journey to learning, because I think that is really important. You know, we've been there, we've suffered it, we've loved it, we've enjoyed it, we've, you know, we're on that sort of journey with everybody. So I think that's quite important.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Lucy. Just Sam and Mark, are there any key points of consideration that you think we might have missed, or is there anything else you'd like to discuss? Obviously, the people who are going to be watching this are interested in these sort of these routes of professional development. So, is there anything you two would like to add at all?
I think it's again reiterating that much of because of the level and because of the way the programs are constructed, and this is as a result really of the degree apprenticeship being a combination of both the degree and the apprenticeship program, and actually, you know, it is very much academic application in the workplace. So that becomes helpful in itself in terms of things like time that you would commit. So you're not looking at a situational case study external to your organisation when you're doing assignments, for example. They're actually based on stuff you're doing at work anyway. So it kind of, it may seem quite intimidating or scary to do a master's. And it's really to say that both in terms of how that's delivered and also the support that an apprenticeship programme brings, for example, mentorship, both at the workplace and through the university. Actually, it's something that not to be scared of, but actually can add value quickly and is absorbed, if you like, within your work and the business that you're running.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Well, I think that pretty much rounds off our discussion. So, I mean, it's been absolutely fantastic to have such like a mix of speakers here with us today. You know, obviously we've got it from the learning side, we've got it from the provider side and from the business owner side as well. So I feel like we've really dug deep into what's available now and specifically the benefits of it to both the business, to the employer and to the employee. So hopefully the viewers today have learned a little bit about what's on offer and could potentially even consider these routes themselves as a way of progressing their careers and stuff. So I'd just like to say thanks everyone for taking part, and thanks everyone for your time today. So I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. So all right, so that's brilliant. So thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.